Dealing a blow to international students, the Canadian government has announced to cap students' visas granted till 2025. Now, the number of visas to be issued in 2025 will be reassessed at the end of this year. Now, as per the announcement, in 2024, a total of 360,000 undergraduate permits will be approved. This is, remember, a massive 35% dip from 2023. Now, Canada's Immigration Minister Marc Miller said the capping was done to address impact of growing number of foreigners on the housing markets. Additionally, each province and territory will receive a set number of permits based on their population. The government will also introduce requirement of an attestation letter for international students from a province or territory when applying for a permit. Now, the intake cap is set to adversely impact Indian students looking to study in Canada. In fact, let's just tell you, in 2022, Indian students accounted for 41% of the total international permits issued, while in 2023, they accounted for 37%. All right, let me go across to my guests who join me this afternoon to better understand this. Rajiv Arora, Canada immigration expert, Zubin Malhotra, career counselor, and Basudev Murthy, Rishihood University. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time out and joining us here on Marona this afternoon. Rajiv, let me come to you first. As far as we know, the immigration policy of Canada, in terms of the fact that they did have the postgraduate work permit, which was a study path for students to potentially either take a one-year course or a two-year course. And then, of course, this is a pathway to the larger aspect of permanent residency. With this move, how do you see this impact those students who would have wanted to take this pathway?
I think people who wanted to go through this route, this easy route, they will be definitely disappointed because people who have a short of budget and people who wanted to move to Canada with low IELTS scores, or everybody who wanted to move to Ontario in specific province, they will be definitely disappointed because the number of cap will be there and not everybody is going to get their visa approval now. So they will definitely be disappointed. They can look after some now if they are not able to achieve Canada, although Canada is one country which gives you straight permanent residency and that gives you passport in just 3 years of time, none like any other country. There is no other country who gives you passport of their country with this god speed of 3 years, and then you can move to USA and you can start working there as well under NAFTA agreement. So that's a very huge there will be very huge impact on those students who are looking to move to Canada. But on the other side, I would say this will bring quality students to the country, and that will improve the quality of the nation Canada. Like we have been hearing from a very long time, the Canada's economy is getting hampered, housing crisis is going on, so people now would not face these challenges in coming year. And I would say this was very late to do. I think it was already too late to do. It should have been implemented way back. This is, I would say. But yes, we cannot make each and everybody happy in this world. Only desired, only deserving candidates should be getting Canadian or any country's visas to maintain the system of that country.
All right, so you're saying essentially the quality should have been checked in earlier, because we do know, with the fact that we have seen an influx of international students, but that's also led to no jobs. In fact, many international students being desperate, and they've been forced to do, the bare minimum low-wage jobs as well. It doesn't matter which province in Canada that is, which shows the stark reality. But let me come to you, Zubin. Zubin, with the fact that, it is a contradictory story. And I say that because we do know that Canada had become the destination for immigration, no matter what pathway that people were choosing, essentially for permanent residency as well. But we're looking at the numbers with the fact that the economy has been contributed by these international students, just $22.3 billion, and out of which, we'll play the graphics also on our screens, that $10.2 billion were by Indian students. So how do you look at that? Because we do know they have a housing crisis right now, but you can't also ignore the fact that the reason immigration started was for the fact that they had a population that needed a young influx of people.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. And I think the reaction is a knee-jerk reaction, and they're perhaps throwing the baby out with the bathwater. In a scenario such as this, where if the primary reason is not the diplomatic fracas between the two countries, but in fact a housing shortage, then the way to mitigate that housing shortage is to build more houses, for which you need more people, for which perhaps they need more immigrants. Right. So it's a kind of a dog chasing its own tail. But the solution that they seem to have found is cutting their own legs at the knees. And Canada's loss will be other countries' gain, including Indian universities, because many of these students will now be forced to look at universities in India. And there are several of them, and many good ones, and several newer ones as well, which are now available to students. And so this Canada dream and this rosy picture, perhaps, story is now coming to an end.
Different perspective. Let me get in Dr. Murthy as well. Dr. Murthy, how do you look at this view? Because we do know in the past couple of years, many students have taken, to different countries to be studying. But with the fact that this might not be the maple dream after all, because we do know India contributes to a large aspect of international students to Canada.
Well, I think both my fellow panelists have made very, very good comments. I myself studied overseas, and I can tell you the reason why we probably went there. We were young and immature. We didn't quite understand these things about how our money adds to the economy or actually the sustenance of education itself. Today, the situation is, I'd like to address it in 2 or 3 different ways. Number one is that many graduate programs, I'm talking about the master's level programs, are actually packed with people from India. Right? If you take them out, those graduate programs will actually collapse. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think it's quite true. So then how does this work? Now, as far as the current mood in India, as I think Mr. Zubin was pointing out, this is perhaps an interesting opportunity for us. It makes us figure out what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong. My own experience tells me now that, frankly, our education system in India is actually very, very, very good. There's nothing so bad about it. Yes, there is a glamour of wanting to go to Canada and emigrating. That's part of being young and having these dreams. But when cold reality hits you, and when situations like these happen, we take a look at our own situation here, and we find it's pretty good. I've been meeting very young people for our university, interviewing them. The parents are not necessarily always looking for Canada and other places as well, because the options available are very good here as well. Our facilities are good. Our campuses are excellent. Faculty is also very good. So maybe, again, it's a blessing in disguise. The third thing I want to point out also is we are seeing a whole influx of various kinds of universities coming from Canada and from the US, coming to India to work on possible, agreements and alliances. Why would they do that? Well, 2 reasons. One is, of course, they're looking for students to populate the other programs. And there is a tremendous amount of interest from, in students over there for wanting to come to India as well. So we have seen a few situations where people do want to come and spend semesters and so on. The mood has changed, and these kinds of things, yes, as somebody said, the housing crisis will hit many people, etc. Yes, very, very true. But it will also add a sense of maybe our situation is not that bad here. Maybe we really have some very good universities here which compete with the best in the world. Given that the past several years, we've seen many folks with Indian education take over top positions. Indian education is also very well respected. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Canada or so on, but this is an opportunity that we must position ourselves to take advantage of.
All right. Essentially, Mr. Murthy, you're pointing out that after all, it's not a loss for those students, because like you said rightly, probably a couple of years ago, students in India would have not known the kind of options. But with the fact that we do see tie-ups from various universities across the globe, that would potentially help these students have other pathways as well. But on that note, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out and joining us here. But we also did have some reactions coming in. Let's listen to those.
I feel this is a very positive thing. Quite a lot of students, they are facing a lot of problems in Canada. The major problem is not getting the job, or they may not be having, good housing because of lack of housing available at this point of time. It is quite expensive as well.
In my opinion, this is a good decision. We can say that the Canadian government is thinking of their own country, as a lot of मतलब कह सकते हैं कि जो untrained labor है उनके पास इकट्ठी हो चुकी है उनकी कंट्री में, क्योंकि वो तो ना तो प्रॉपरली जॉब्स प्रोवाइड कर पा रहे हैं, ना ही उनकी एजुकेशन एनहांस हो पा रही है.
ये अच्छा डिसीज़न है गवर्नमेंट का, बिकॉज जो अच्छे स्टूडेंट ही होंगे, जो ग्रेजुएट होंगे या मतलब पढ़ने में अच्छे होंगे, वो ही बाहर जाएंगे. और बाकी है कि जिनके मतलब लगा लो 5.5 आते हैं, ऐसे वो स्टूडेंट कम हो जाएंगे जाना. अच्छे बैंड लेके जाएंगे तो अच्छा ही परफॉर्मेंस करेंगे.